Another immigrant suddenly detained by ICE, sparking unanswered questions about due process and leaving a community in uproar. This is Imam Ayman Soliman, a former chaplain at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. He came to the U.S. from Egypt in 2014, seeking asylum. And since then, he's dedicated his life to interfaith work, supporting families fighting for their kids' recovery or praying for those suffering from losses in the hospital. The Biden administration started the process to revoke his asylum status in 2024. And we don't know yet why, because the government has not explained that decision. But the Trump administration finalized it last month. Then, this past Wednesday, ICE arrested him during a check-in. He is now being detained in the Butler County Jail near Cincinnati, a controversial site that has partnered with DHS to hold immigrant detainees under both Trump administrations. Its ICE contract was canceled during Biden's presidency. For Ayman, the future is now uncertain. Hundreds have raised money for his legal defense, and many shared character testimonies, hoping the government would change course. They say he was there for families of all faiths in the hospital, in their children's greatest time of need. And on the day he was arrested, here's what he told a state official in an interview.
If anything happens, just to speak about me. Yeah. That this is unfair. And going back to Egypt for me is a death sentence. It's not, I didn't come to America seeking a better life. It was escaping death.
Joining us now are two moms whose children were cared for by Imam Ayman Soliman, Heather Barrow and Taylor McClain. Also with us is Alan Orr, immigration attorney and the former president of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. Thank you all for being here with us this evening. Heather, I want to begin with you. Tell us the story of how you met Ayman and what it was like for your family working with him, hearing from him while you and your children were at the hospital.
Thank you for having us. I had my daughter last June at a different local hospital, and then we were transferred to Children's 3 days later. She was born at 6 months. She was very premature, very sick. And we spent June to mid-November in the NICU with her before she unfortunately passed. And Ayman was with us every step of the way. We met him the first day we were at Children's, and I think we saw him almost every day we were there, including the day she passed. He was instrumental in just providing a comforting presence during a really scary time of unknowns, and you're kind of drinking out of a fire hose when you're in the NICU because you're having to learn a lot of really in-depth medical information all while trying to make the right decision for your child. It's just incredibly overwhelming, and Ayman is just so full of love and grace, and he's just a genuinely good man that helped us walk through almost 6 months of just terror and sadness.
Taylor, why was it important for you to talk about this and to talk about what Imam Ayman meant for you and your family and the community? I mean, I think a lot of people right now are looking at a lot of cases in this country. They don't know the names. They don't know the stories of the people who are being caught up in this immigration process and all the challenges that are currently out there right now facing people in this immigration system. But why did you feel the need to put your name and your story to this case in the public?
Yeah, and again, thank you so much for having us. Ayman was, like Heather said, from day one, a huge presence in our lives. Our daughter was born at 30 weeks. Medical complexities and things were really critical from the very beginning and throughout her stay at the hospital. We were there for 10 months, and Ayman, I'm pretty sure we saw him every single day. Through that time in her critical condition, Ayman was a huge advocate for our family. As a mom who is not medical, it's kind of hard to get a seat at the table sometimes, especially with all of her medical complexities and all of the teams that were working with our daughter. And so Ayman was kind of that bridge. And any time that I was unsure or there seemed to be question as to what was going to happen in surgery or things like that. Ayman was the first to advocate and make sure that surgeons were in our room, letting us know exactly what was going to happen and making sure everybody was on the same page. So we can definitely thank Ayman for, our daughter and that she's living today because of his advocacy.
Alan, there are still a lot of things we don't know about this case and why this man was, why he was detained, why his asylum was taken away in the first place. Can you just walk us through how common or uncommon it is for asylum to be revoked years after it's been granted, and under what kinds of circumstances this usually happens, if there is even a usually?
Okay, so first, it's very uncommon. It's like 1% of the cases. So there are thousands of cases that are approved every year and only 1% is sort of revoked. And this circumstance is a little bit different because what we noticed from Mr. Soliman is that he stood up for his rights. He was on a watch list and he shouldn't have been on, or he was mistakenly put on a watch list, and he sued the government. And it is that retaliation for the error of the government that might have led to him having this problem. What we do know is he does not represent a threat to our society, as we have seen from your other guests, and that other Americans are going to suffer without having his sort of stewardship to sort of help them in these very difficult process. So it's very uncommon to do, and it really doesn't behoove us or immigration to lock him up and detain him in a place where someone has given so much to our society.
Heather, Ayman touched on this a moment ago, this feeling that so many in the country have right now as they see videos constantly of people being detained, taken from their communities, off of streets and workplaces. When you think about just this single person, Mr. Soliman, what does it represent to the community around Cincinnati to lose someone like this?
It's scary. He's a very dedicated interfaith leader in the community. He's very well respected. He's helped thousands of families just like mine and Taylor's throughout the city, the nation. Cincinnati Children's is the best children's hospital in the country, and they serve people all over the world. So he's impacted many, many people, and it's scary and sad to see such a good man be treated like this in an unjust way.
Alan, can I go back to a point that you brought up, and it's almost to kind of separate the case of the individual with the rights of due process here. We don't know exactly, as you and others have been talking about, we don't know the case, his asylum and what may have gotten him to this point and why he was ultimately detained. And there are a lot of questions about that. But at the same time, the fact that people believe he was not granted due process, can you tell us what are the rights of people? I mean, I think we saw a similar parallel with the case around Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He may not have been the perfect man or the perfect case, but that's even more reason to say you have to ensure due process rights for everyone, even the people in our society who may have a question mark over their behavior or over their actions.
So we can sort of tie these together a little bit, because Mr. Garcia was not removed from the United States because he sort of got this removal against sort of this torture. And this is what is also available to Mr. Sullivan right now, because he stated that if he returns to Egypt, he will be tortured. And so that is something the United States generally does not do. I know there are a lot of cases where we're returning people to third countries right now. There are a bunch of people who are sort of stranded in Panama, but generally that's the case of what we do not do as far as due process. But what is confusing about this is the facts are not clear and laid out to us as to why he's being detained. And if he is a national security interest, then generally we would have more information about that than now. And he's been here for a very long time. So something in the fact pattern is not correct. And it seems to also be linked to this retaliation lawsuit that he has filed. So the due process is sort of saying, what are the charges? And the community should know, and the community should stand up, because we've already seen Carol, the waitress, get relieved. The grandmother, the Iranian grandmother, Madonna, also get relieved. So all those thousands of people who've been a benefit of his sort of stewardship should stand up right now to the side and say, this is not what we want. This is not what we voted for.
Alan, can you also speak a bit, he has been sent to the Butler County Jail. This is a county jail run by a local, actually very controversial sheriff in the state of Ohio that contracts with the government to be able to have ICE detainees. What do you know about sites like this one and the way that immigrants are often treated once they are there?
So if your only crime is entering the United States, then you should be returned to your country. You should not be put in torture in the United States. We've seen a vast variety, and I've been to many detention centers close to the border and removed from the border. This is not the way you treat people, to put them in places where people actually committed real crimes. So the situation, these community jails are underfunded. So that tells you the kind of staffing and the kind of conditions they live in. And also, it is not cost beneficial to the taxpayer to then have to keep someone who is a benefit to society detained in these sort of prisons at the local rate, because they are not therefore taking care of the local citizens when they have someone like this detained. And what we have found is even in these sort of situations with these local jails, it becomes somewhat of a profit center for detaining these immigrants.
Alan Orr, Taylor McCain, and Heather Barrow, thank you so much for your time. Greatly appreciate you sharing your story with us. Thank you.